Well, the world is in some turmoil. The old order passes, as the saying goes. Now Britain has voted to leave the European Union. The future of the EU itself could be in doubt. Several other countries are talking about getting out as well, including even France.
And some European leaders are pushing Britain to get out quickly to calm the stock markets, which have dropped sharply since that vote to leave. Dale Hurd has the story.
London Stock Exchange trading in shares of two big British banks, the Royal Bank of Scotland and Barclays, had to be temporarily suspended today, amid more volatility in the markets following the country's decision to leave the European Union. And that financial turmoil and uncertainty led to a message from European foreign ministers to Britain. And the message wasn't, please stay. It was, see you later. They want the process to move as quickly as possible, partly to help calm things down.
We need to turn the page. We don't want a vacuum. And it's important now that these negotiations with the United Kingdom start in good faith, but as soon as possible.
European Parliament President Martin Schulz said negotiations should begin Tuesday. But British Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, says the UK will decide when it leaves.
Only the UK can trigger Article 50. And in my judgment, we should only do that when there is a clear view about what new arrangements we are seeking with our European neighbours.
But some European leaders would like to allow Britain to reconsider. And over the weekend, more than 3 million British signed an online petition to hold a second referendum vote.
People need to reconsider, and I think it'd be great to have another vote. I think everyone's kind of regretting it.
I think it's ludicrous to have another referendum. You know, you can't just keep going, can you?
They can't stop it. You know, people have voted, not the government, so that's what people want. They should get on with it. You know, they get voted in, they get voted out. It's not an election, but get on with it.
5 more nations could leave: France, the Netherlands, Austria, Finland, and Hungary. France's Front National leader Marine Le Pen has pledged to hold a French referendum if she wins next year's presidential elections. It's going to be a rough ride, not only for the markets, but also for the European Union in the days ahead. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
And the British pound is dropping precipitously. It came down again today. Did you short the pound?
I can't say.
You didn't?
Well, talk a little bit about what happens if these other 5 nations leave. That leaves, what, Germany as the lead?
They can't sustain it. It'll break apart. But what's happened, Terry, it's so clear. There's an insupportable bureaucracy, just like we've got here in the United States, draining huge amounts of money for their bureaucratic processes. Then bureaucrats sitting in offices in Brussels are dictating what a farmer in Yorkshire is going to do. And the farmer in Yorkshire said, no way, I'm not going to go for that. So they're also now subject to a wave of immigrants, and every nation now has got to accept them. And the Brits are saying that this is going to destroy our country. And the French and others are saying the same thing. So when you get the fact that they're being overrun, that it's a wasteful bureaucracy, that the bureaucrats aren't listening to the people, I mean, it's exactly what we've got here in America. The bureaucrats aren't listening to the people, and that we've got a bloated bureaucracy that's sucking the lifeblood out of our country. That's what the Brits said, and the Brits said we want out. So I say, good for you.
So do you think the stock market will balance out?
Well, you know, depending on what you got in your stocks, my stocks are up. Gold.
Listen.
Really, so depends on what you're into, but some of the stalwarts in the Dow have gone down, but I think that's temporary. The Dow took quite a hit, but so what? There's been a lot of wealth lost in Europe because of this, but primarily the pound has cratered, and that I'm sure Soros shorted the pound big time, and he's made a lot of money. Well, here at home, a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security is telling his story about and get this, he was punished for identifying the links between radical Islam and the terrorist threat here in America. Get that, the links between them. He was punished because he revealed them. Ephraim Graham has that story.
Pat, whistleblower Philip Haney is set to testify before a Senate subcommittee tomorrow, and he told CBN's Jennifer Wishon about his experiences in Homeland Security, including why information about the ties between radical Islam and terrorism was erased from government records, and what the jihadis' long-term goal really is.
After the terrorist attack in Orlando, the Justice Department tried to redact all references the killer made to Islam during his 911 call. That blunder allowed the public to see the type of scrubbing that's been going on behind closed doors of the federal government for years. A systematic erasing of links between Islam and terrorism, according to Philip Haney, a longtime officer in the Department of Homeland Security.
They told me, we want you to eliminate, the word was modify, all the linking information in about 850 records that I put into the system on guess what group? The Muslim Brotherhood.
That was in 2009, 1 year after President Obama was elected. Haney says Obama relied on the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamic groups with ties to terrorism to craft U.S. policy.
And in 2012, it happened again. This time they didn't just modify the information in the records, they completely eliminated them out of the system, erased them forever. And then they investigated me for putting that information into the system when that's exactly the job that I was supposed to be doing.
He's been investigated 9 times. At one point, he was picked apart by 3 federal agencies at once. Haney was exonerated, but through his experiences came to realize spiritual warfare is taking place at the highest levels of government.
I can't explain to you the ideology or the worldview of this administration that makes them so adamant to protect Islam from harm by addressing it in its true nature.
How has your Christian faith helped you get through all of this?
We're talking about very, very high-level, malevolent kind of forces here at work, and it is very sobering to see these kind of things operating. These are biblical level events that we're talking about.
His book, See Something, Say Nothing, details his tumultuous time at the Department of Homeland Security. After living in the Middle East and studying terrorism, Haney believes jihad is a tactic radical Muslims are using to achieve their goal of implementing Sharia law in the U.S., Europe, and around the world.
The power of Sharia is very difficult to exaggerate how much influence it has on the life of Muslims around the world.
You say this is a battle between the Constitution and Sharia law.
Are we going to submit to the influence of Sharia law and make it legal for one particular religion to have more than one wife? Or are we going to say, no, you cannot implement those provisions as long as you want to be a citizen of the United States?
What America needs, he says, is to focus on the Constitution.
And if you become more familiar with the Constitution, you'll be able to see more clearly the points of contact or conflict between the U.S. Constitution and Sharia law. And then you can discuss it without fear of being called a racist or a bigot or an Islamophobe.
Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Because we will not.
Eye-opening report. Pat.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, we keep hearing it, and if you say anything about it, you're just as he said, you're labeled an Islamophobe or a racist. But the truth is, we have a president. We have a president whose stepfather was a Muslim, whose stepfather in Indonesia put him in an Islamic madrasa. His father, actual father, was not an American, he was a Kenyan. He was a member of the Luo tribe who wanted to rebel against England and the West. And so he set down a course. The fact that he was also an alcoholic and a womanizer got him fired from his job, but nevertheless, that was Obama's father. Now, Obama has visceral dislike for the standards that we have in this country. What he thinks is America is an oppressor, and he thinks that the nation of Islam or the Islamic countries should not be in any way called out for the action they have. Without question, the Muslim Brotherhood was the fountainhead of the radical groups that have been working in the Middle East. The Muslim Brotherhood spawned Hamas. The Muslim Brotherhood spawned Hezbollah. The Muslim Brotherhood spawned the Palestine Liberation Organization. And undoubtedly they have involved themselves in other radical groups. But their goal, a stated, announced goal, is to impose Sharia law on all the countries of the world. That's what they want. And the fact that they have been brought into the inner circles of the government of the United States. And then, for example, in the FBI terrorism manual, from what I understand, and I hope my facts are correct, 1,000 pages have been removed that mention all this about the Islamic extremists. But if we don't know who our enemies are, how can we fight them? And the object is we can't fight them. The government doesn't want us to. And it's shocking, it should be horrifying, and it's time the American people stand up against it. We're being taken over. It's a very subtle thing. Europe is being overrun and taken over. And country after country after country are facing Islamic extremists, and it is very hurtful. But if we can't identify who they are, we can't say, well, why are they doing these things? They must hate us because we're oppressors in the 19th century. That has nothing to do with it. It's at the core of their ideology. Read the Quran. It says it so clearly. And the people, ladies and gentlemen, get this the people who are distorting Islam are not these radical groups. They are following right down the line what the Quran says. The ones who are distorting it are the so-called moderates who refuse to go along with it. It's amazing. But we have got to do something in this country. That's why we're looking at a revolution in England. They may be looking for a revolution here in this country. We've had enough. Ephraim?
Pat, the Supreme Court is set to rule on two important cases, one involving abortion laws in Texas. The state passed laws requiring abortion doctors to have admitting privileges as hospitals and for clinics to meet certain ambulatory regulations. Supporters say it's to improve safety for women. Critics say it's just an effort to limit access to abortions. The case could have national implications.
If the court upholds the Texas law in the abortion case, I think it will empower other states to pass reforms to make sure that abortion clinics within their borders are operating in a safe and clean manner. Because, you know, whenever women have any sort of operation, and it is a serious operation, and I think that's not something that always gets through when we're talking about abortion, but women deserve safe and clean facilities for any kind of medical procedure.
The court is also expected to rule in the case of former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. He was convicted of corruption charges related to gifts, but he broke no Virginia laws, and officials from both parties in multiple states have supported his appeal, saying he was wrongly accused. At least 25 people are dead and many still missing after severe flash floods hit remote areas of West Virginia over the weekend. Rescue crews are still searching the wreckage, and Operation Blessing is sending truckloads of supplies to help those in need. Chuck Holton brings us that story from southern West Virginia.
Historic rainstorms pounded West Virginia late last week, causing flash flooding worse than anyone here can remember. More than 10 inches in just a few hours caught many unawares and washed away cars, homes, and more than 24 people. James Mitchell is a chaplain in the West Virginia State Police.
Tremendous flash flooding, a lot of damage, a lot of tragedy. In such a large amount of rain in such a short amount of time, it hits and flows down into these creek beds, and these people are built right along the creek beds, and they just go outside of their banks and just causes a great amount of destruction. We have families who have lost children. We have children who have lost parents. And it's just a real tragedy. Ongoing search and rescue mode at this point even. It's required the governor to declare a state of emergency over 44 counties throughout the state of West Virginia.
Federal disaster relief was approved for 3 of the counties hardest hit, and the governor has mobilized 500 National Guard troops to help with the cleanup. But the communities and churches in the surrounding areas are already answering the call to help.
So we have received calls all day long from people that are volunteering, church groups that are organizing. I've seen messages all day from one church to another, collecting materials ready to mobilize and go out and to help people clean up their houses, their businesses, whatever it takes. And so churches are really stepping forth at this point.
Operation Blessing's Hunger Strike Force is responding with 2 semi-trailers with food and relief supplies to help meet the long-term needs created by this disaster. And even though they're calling this the 100-year flood, residents here will be keeping a wary eye on the sky as more rain is forecast for this week. From southern West Virginia, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Our prayers for the people of West Virginia. Pat?
Well, we certainly do pray. I was born up close to West Virginia in Lexington, Virginia, and I go from time to time over to the Greenbrier area. It's so beautiful that they were going to have a golf tournament there. The fairway is completely flooded. They don't know how long it'll be before they get the golf course up. It'll be maybe several years. But the people are such resilient, wonderful people in West Virginia, and our prayers are with them. Now, Operation Blessing is working up there, and so is Mercy Chefs. So Mercy Chefs, an organization that we have close ties to. They're up there providing hot meals for the first responders and others. But it's a horrible thing. And there was one picture that perhaps some of you saw, that there's a house that was ripped up from its foundations, and it was set on fire, and it was burning as it was going down this raging river. It was quite a scene. Now, if you want to participate, I know you do, because this is close to home for me and for others. It's 1-800-759-0700. It's Operation Blessing International Disaster Relief Fund. And we need to help those people. They're wonderful people, the West Virginia folks. They're sturdy, hardy, and a lot of them don't have a lot of extra money. They're right up against it in terms of poverty. And a disaster like this could be the difference between life and death. So let's help them as much as we can. So we'll do that.